you will notice that Herodotus uses two distinct names for the goddess that the prostitute priestesses worship. The first is Aphrodite, called Venus in Rome, who was worshipped in Greece as the goddess of love and beauty. The Greek Aphrodite was not worshipped by the Babylonians specifically, but rather Herodotus sees the goddess that the Babylonians are worshipping as another face or identity of the goddess he's most familiar with. The second name is Mylitta, whom Herodotus sees as the Assyrian version of Aphrodite. Mylitta is most likely the Hellenized name of the Assyrian goddess Mulissu, whom in the Neo-Assyrian Empire was seen as the goddess Ishtar, also called Inanna. Another detailed work, of which its authorship remains unknown, is Didaea Syria, also known as Concerning the Syrian Goddess, which discusses the cult of the goddess Atargatis, also called Ataratha, who is worshipped in northern Syria. Interesting enough, besides priestesses engaging in ritual orgy or sacred prostitution, the text also mentions sexual practices amongst Atargatis' male priests, which hints that men could have also been sacred prostitutes. In the Old Testament Hebrew Bible, there are also several instances of sacred prostitution or sacred prostitutes being mentioned. There are two specific Hebrew words that have been translated as prostitute. The first is zona, and the second is kadesha. The second word, kadesha, has roots in the Semitic word kadesha, which means holy or sacred. In some Bible translations, kadesh is translated or transliterated as sodomite to refer to a homosexual male. The masculine and male form of the word is kadesh and appears in the Old Testament, as well as hinting and corresponding to the earlier reference from Concerning the Syrian Goddess that they may have been male sacred prostitutes in service to the love and fertility goddess as well. One example of a priestess known to us as whore would be Rahab, who held a position of influence in Jericho and brokered an agreement with Joshua that she and her family would be spared. A scarlet thread was tied outside her window so his men would know to spare the occupants of the room. She then became one of the ancestresses of King David. One gets a sense reading about these women in the Bible that there's a grudging respect afforded to them, an acknowledgement of who they were, intermingled with the desire to classify them as fallen women. Right, because the priestess prostitutes are in service of a fallen angel or alien, Inanna Ishtar. Kadesha refers to a sacred prostitute, whereas Zona refers to a simple common prostitute, much like the Punai of ancient Greece. The first two are in Genesis. The entirety of Genesis 38 is the story of Judah, one of the founders of the 12 tribes, having children with his daughter-in-law Tamar. Tamar originally married the two elder sons of Judah named and Onan, but God killed them due to their wickedness and the desire not to impregnate Tamar respectively. As a result, Judah's youngest son Shelah was supposed to marry Tamar through a practice called levirate marriage, but Shelah was too young to marry, so Tamar had to wait till he grew up. After Shelah grew up, Tamar heard that Judah was going to shear his sheep, so she veiled herself and waited alongside the road for him. Judah didn't recognize Tamar when he met her alongside the road due to her veil. He believes her to be a prostitute, and after making some payment arrangements, has sex and impregnates her. When he comes to deliver his payment to her, he cannot find her. He asks others about her and specifically calls her a Kadesha. Kadesha, definition, a male prostitute, cult prostitute, temple prostitute, sodomite. Queen of Heaven, Kadesh Hathor, standing on her avatar, the lion. Interesting that she's the Queen of Heaven, and Inanna Ishtar is also the Queen of Heaven. Kadesh was originally a Semitic deity whose worship was imported into Egypt during the New Kingdom. She was a goddess of nature, beauty, and sexual pleasure. Originally, her husband was the god Resheph. You need to write that down. A Syrian deity whose worship was introduced to Egypt during the Middle Kingdom. Kadesh was originally depicted as a naked woman standing on the back of a lion. Outside of Egypt, it's sometimes a horse with a crescent moon on her head. So I find it interesting that the Bible calls cult prostitutes Kadesh, and the prostitution goddess of Egypt is Kadesh. This connects the Israelites to living in Egypt. Ishtar is shown standing on lions, just like Kadesh. Ishtar is Venus, and Venus is near to the constellation Leo the Lion. In northern Africa, the area of influence of the Phoenician colony of Carthage, this service was associated with the city of Sicca, a nearby city that received the name Sicca Veneria for its temple of Astarte or Tanit, called Venus by Roman authors. Queen of Heaven Kadesh Hathor, standing on her avatar the lion, she holds aphrodisiac lotuses and snakes. The amulet of the vulture. This amulet was intended to cause the power of Isis as the divine mother to be a protection for the deceased, and was made of gold in the form of a vulture hovering in the air with outstretched wings and holding in each talon the symbol of life, the Ankh. Semiramis is the mother and wife of Nimrod Baal. She was called Ishtar, Astarte, Astaroth, and Isis. The Ankh symbol looks identical to the symbol of Tanit, aka Ishtar, their amulet of the serpent's head. This amulet was placed on the dead body to keep it from being bitten by snakes in the underworld or tomb. It's made of red stone, red jasper, red paste, and carnelian. As the goddess Isis is often typified by a serpent and red is a color peculiar to her, it seems as if the idea underlying the use of this amulet was to vanquish snakes in the tomb by means of the power of the great snake goddess Isis. Look at this! Inanna Ishtar, symbolized by the 8-pointed star, the colors red and carnelian, symbolize the goddess. I'm sure it's a coincidence that Guadalajara has a serpent head sculpture. The term Herodalai literally means sacred prostitute. It refers specifically to priestesses whose function included sexual rites. Over time, the enactment of the king's symbolic marriage to the goddess probably became mere form and finally obsolete as Babylon and other societies became more stratified and warlike. Then military might, instead of mystical union with the goddess, conferred legitimacy on a ruler. In Babylon, there was also a hierarchy of prostitutes, from the high-ranking temple priestesses, the Entu and Neditu, to the tavern or street hall called Harim-Tu. It's worth noting that in Babylonian religious texts, the goddess Ishtar identifies herself with the lower ranks of the street prostitutes, saying, "When I sit in the entrance of a tavern, I, Ishtar, am a loving Harim-Tu." In another Babylonian text, Ishtar proclaims, "A prostitute compassionate am I." Isis began her long illustrious life as a goddess in Egypt. Worship of Isis spread all over the Mediterranean world and beyond. There was even a temple to Isis on the Thames River. In Rome, though, she was regarded by the ruling class as an exotic oriental import. She was worshipped well into Christian times. Like Jesus, Isis was a universal and merciful savior who paid no attention to social class or lineage. Like the Virgin Mary, she was a divine and devoted mother. She was also beloved by prostitutes. According to the wealth of law surrounding her, during her long search for the body of her lover brother Osiris, she was a prostitute in Tyre for 10 years, perhaps a temple prostitute. She eventually found Osiris's coffin in a pillar of a temple to Astarte and Byblos. Isis's own temples were often located near brothels and had the reputation of being a meeting place for prostitutes. Isis, like Inanna and Ishtar, was all in one: whore, wife, mother, all holy. Apparently, worshippers saw no contradiction. Inanna Ishtar is associated with Venus. Her symbols are the 8-pointed star, lion, rosette, and dove. The Akkadian Ishtar is also to a greater extent an astral deity associated with the planet Venus. In this manifestation, her symbol is a star with 6, 8, or 16 rays within a circle. As goddess of Venus delighting in bodily love, Ishtar was the protectress of prostitutes and the patroness of the alehouse. Part of occult worship probably included temple prostitution. This takes us to Eyes Wide Shut. The star on the wall there are several scenes with the star positioned right behind her head, which is a clue to what she is. And during Christmas time, I've never seen the star on sale in any shops. He takes her alcohol and drinks from it, telling me that he has control over her somehow. I wonder if they put aphrodisiac drugs in the champagne. Soon after they entered the place, she said she hated these kinds of parties and necked back a glass of champagne or whatever this is. Have a look at the Christmas lights in the background, the stars on the wall. I've never seen those lights in a shop either. It's the Eastern Star, supposedly women's Freemasonry. The colors on each point matches the star lights because it's meant to. The Hunger Games connects to this, and I already did a video about that. I think each color relates to the different aspects of Ishtar. Venus, for example, has been associated with the colors blue, green, yellow, and white. Thus, spells invoking the power of Oshun, spirit of love and beauty, inevitably draw upon the color yellow and the number 5. And I've said before, Venus rules the color green. The serpent priestesses and ancient sexual rites. The priestesses wore robes of scarlet, the color signifying the source of their power, and were titled Hor, or in Greek, Herodalai. The original statue of Ishtar is red, but faded over time. And we go to blue. Venus rules copper, so anything to do with this metal relates to her. So I'm diverting here briefly. The Olympics is taking place in Paris. This photo is intentional because a professional photographer would not publish a pigeon photobombing this shot. They would take another or edit it. The pigeon dove connects to Ishtar and portals. The 5 Olympic rings match the 5-pointed Eastern Star. The ring has black instead of white. I think the black represents the dark goddess Hecate. Hecate was a goddess in Greek mythology. Her name was derived from the Greek word Hekatos, which means worker from afar. She is often displayed holding 2 torches or a key, which tells me that she is a portal goddess because she opens doors just like Janus. It is believed that Hecate represented witchcraft, magic, and ghosts. Later periods show statues of Hecate in threefold, having 3 separate bodies and faces. It's unclear why this change took place. Some speculate that it represents the full moon, half moon, and new moon. Historian Robert Graves notes that the heads could be distinctive of a dog, lion, and horse, representing the constellations. The various statues have also raised questions as to her duties. One sculpture depicts Hecate with a friendly dog, another with the heads of a cow, dog, boar, serpent, or horse. The dog relates to Diana, goddess of the hunt, the serpent to Ishtar or Lilith, which is like the other side of the coin. Lilith is this demon woman. The boar could connect to Tammuz. The 40 days of Lent symbolize the 40 years that Tammuz lived. Lent ends with Easter when it's tradition to eat ham. This symbolizes the remembrance of Tammuz, who was killed by a wild boar. Now, the Paris Olympics, it looks like a number 4. This is actually the symbol for Jupiter. Plus you have the light blue and dark blue, again connecting to the girl on the Denver airport mural. The yellow and purple together is compared to the boy holding the pigeon. So they've put the symbol for Jupiter on the arch. Paul did a video discussing all the arches in different countries because it's a gateway. Now look at the colors inside of the arch. Colors associated with Jupiter are blue and purple. They have the symbol for Jupiter on the arch and the colors of Jupiter inside the arch. And it is an arch, so it does connect to Ishtar's gateway, doorway, portal, etc. The gods of Jupiter are the sky gods and storm fathers. Jupiter himself is a Roman god of thunder and lightning, highly identified with the Greek Zeus, the leader of the Olympians, which is why we have the Olympics. To the Sumerians, Marduk led the fight against the dragon creature Tiamat, creating the world and a new age. In Egypt, it was Amun-Ra. Modern Celtic practitioners also look to the good father god of the Tuatha De Danann, the Dada, as a Jupiter figure. So I'll leave it there for now. Tom has the star behind him because, in a sense, he's a prostitute as well. Soon as he was through the door, he was then called upstairs to attend to something. Now look at the green panels all over the wall. Venus rules the color green. And look at the painting on the upper right. The woman in the painting is positioned exactly like the prostitute. She's lying on a red sofa. She has one leg up, and the prostitute is lying on a red thing, and she has one leg up. Then he goes back to that man's house at a later time. Do you see the pineapples in the background there? The pineapples reference Yamaya, who is also Venus. She wears pearls around her neck, and the prostitute is wearing a pearl ring. He is dissociated because all the girls he meets are prostitutes, and all the shops are owned by them. He's married to a prostitute and doesn't seem to know it. There's a ruby necklace on the table and red candles to the right of her. And I say her loosely because that's a boy bum. That's not a woman's body. Where's the hips? There's no curvy lower spine or tilted pelvis. It's a documentary within a documentary. There's always this strange blue light coming from the windows, but not the hallway. Windows are portals, but also representing that he's dissociated and in another realm. Whilst his front personality is doing something else, the whole film is his dissociated self trying to tell him what's really happening. And these 2 elite girls at the party says, "Don't you want to go where the rainbow ends?" Where the rainbow ends is an underage prostitute with no hips and long arms. Probably a subliminal trigger for him to go to the shop, buy a mask, and go to the mansion party where they attended. So it's likely that it was a hypnotic-induced ritual setup. He's unmasked and then shamed because he's not supposed to be there. The red, purple, and black, they have a strange blue light on their faces, and she propositions him. So Milic supposedly catches his daughter with 2 men who are dressed in drag for some reason. It was over the top and really staged, but look, Lili Sobieski was about 15 years old when she did this film. Where's the hips? Why does she have these large shoulders and long arms and straight torso and no hips? The 2 feathers here are purple and red together. It means that Milic, his daughter, and the shop are owned by the cult. Everywhere throughout the film he encounters prostitutes, lights on the mirror indicating light frequencies to open portals, and Stanley Kubrick was obsessed about each and every scene, so he wanted the blue and pink lights to be seen from this angle. The colors red and blue are used to symbolize Inanna Ishtar to highlight her male and female aspects, because all of these actors are inverted. Domino has these masks on her wall, and that might be a clue that she probably attends these masquerade balls as well. The colors of the cult are red, purple, and black. Domino is wearing a purple dress. The scarf on her bed is red and black. Plus, she has a tiger, which connects to Ishtar, possibly why they call it beta kitten programming. And at the end of the film, they go to the shop, look at the colors. She passes a game called the Magic Circle, which is them up there. The cult is the Magic Circle, and it means that they own that shop. Look, the same tiger is in that shop. It means that everyone in that area is owned and controlled by this cult. Same as when he went to the diner. Everybody there, except for the waitress, look at their clothing. You can see it in the mirror. Purple, red, and black together, they're all wearing the same colors. Now, I've read that teddy bears represent pedophilia, which is relevant to the next scene, because their daughter Helena is walking away with two men, and they're not fazed by that. It's probable they went to the shop to offer their daughter up to the cult. Now, I did read about this a few years ago. Apparently, the men that she's leaving with were attending the party that they went to in the beginning, and I put these two pictures together. The winged statue up there is supposed to be Cupid, who is Tammuz, and down there, Helena is wearing wings. The two Christmas trees line up with each other, which is intended because Stanley Kubrick was pedantic about detail. Bill is walking up the stairs. It's a metaphor that he's climbing the ladder in society. As such, they have to offer their firstborn. It's possible they had to do that anyway, since Helena is the daughter of a sacred prostitute, which suggests that Domino and her roommate and the dead model are all descendants of sacred prostitutes because of their hair. Tom goes back to Domino's flat and brings her some cake, but she's not there, and her flatmate answers the door. So they have this conversation, and the flatmate says Domino's not there because she found out she was HIV positive, which I thought was a strange thing to say considering, so I put it through an anagram, and what I got? Ho visit VIP. So it's likely that Domino was purchased or bought by an elite member. She doesn't know him and never met him, but already in his physical space. I don't know anyone who would be happy to have a prostitute for a roommate because there's a safety issue there. Domino brought him back to her place, so it's likely they are both prostitutes. And this is a probability since the pentagram of Venus is printed on her dress. It's identical, and it makes me think that these are all daughters of Herodeli because they all have red hair. And Helena also has red hair. And because every scene means something, Stanley was obsessed with detail, so he shot this scene of the purple and red next to Helena because it shows that her parents are in a cult. In December 1972, Marie-Hélène, a member of the most powerful family in the world, hosted a surrealist ball. In Stanley Kubrick's film Eyes Wide Shut, the occult ritual takes place in another Rothschild mansion, Mentmore Towers in England. So people theorize that Stanley was telling people these sorts of masquerade balls actually go on. I found one of the flags of the Rothschilds, and it's been noted that this really is about them because the flag has a double-headed eagle with a crown, and that's exactly on the back of his chair. Incidentally, Roth means red hair. The Star of Ishtar is in this house, meaning this is a prostitution party. That's why he propositioned her. She's got red hair originally. I'm sure every female at that party was a prostitute at some point. And I found this interview a few years ago, and the woman says when she was very young, the Satanist used her to open portals, and these snaking lights would come zapping through and go into some of the people who were there. They use mystics or scarlet females, Herodeli, to open portals, but they may have technology that can achieve the same thing or similar now. Right, because I've said ad infinitum that Ishtar is the portal goddess. They probably use the sexual energy to open portals or create realities elsewhere. That's why they don't teach you this in school. The picture above Helena's head has a subliminal inside. Can you see it? S, E, and X. The picture on the upper left seems to be a subliminal as well, but I can't really see what it is. In Eyes Wide Shut, the rainbow lights that contain the Iris, goddess of the rainbow, the female Hermes or Thoth. Now, apparently the word thought is a loose woman, and it's meant to come from the word Thoth. So here we have a thought wearing ruby slippers. Jodie Foster played a prostitute and taxi driver. Guess what her name is? Iris. I'm sure that's a coincidence. Dressed in old man's clothing, that's really weird. Look at this. Large shoulders, long arms, no hips whatsoever, high male calf muscle and skinny ankles. So apparently her sister was her body double because she was too young, but the sister has quite a large skull and long arms, and they both have huge hands. And this is Jodie as a child. That looks like a little boy to me. It looks like I'm seeing two boys. And this film here I saw last year, this is weird. It's so creepy and weird. And then you've got this creeper who was interested in her. She's meant to be about 12 years old in this film, and she acts like an adult, and it's really creepy. So she has a boyfriend who's about 16 years old, so it's just a bunch of inappropriate behavior. Do you think of yourself as an infet? I should hope not. And look at this. Why would you let your child dress like that? Even if it was a girl, why would you let your child wear this sort of clothing? It looks like a lad from the 1970s. It's obvious to me. And apparently she was in this magazine when she was 18 years old. I don't think she was 18 years old. I think she was much younger. I saw a video on here that has since been removed that she wrote in her book when her mother needed money, she sent them out to work. But what do you mean work? Like, it's so inappropriate. This is what they practice. Truly. Like Christina Aguilera said, if you want to be with me, there's a price to pay. Because these are temple prostitutes. Cult temple prostitutes. Kadesh is Ishtar, who's also Isis and Astaroth. And these people really are practicing this to bring negative entities into this realm. They've been infecting this realm with their cult practices for ages. Epithets of Asherah, Lion Lady, Hebrew Goddess, the one of the serpent, Great Mother Goddess, Lady who treads on the sea, Queen of Heaven. Which brings me to Lovecraft Country. I haven't seen this series, but Jamie Chung with no hips and long arms, wearing red paint. The red skin reminded me of Red Tara, an Asian goddess akin to Ishtar. Tara appears in many aspects, represented by different colours, the most famous of which are green and white. Red Tara is less famous in the West, though in the East she's widely known and worshipped. Red Tara is responsible for the so-called red magic, or Vashya Karma. The function of red magic is bringing people under one's power, enchanting, bewitching, attracting, subjugating, and magnetizing them. This is the primary function of the Kurukula, and hence her red colour. I think these gods and goddesses might actually be aliens or Nephilim, and they show it. Look, they show her coming out of a spacecraft, and for what? For what reason? It doesn't fit with the rest of the scenery. Red Tara has the amazing ability of enchantment or bewitchment, evocatively convincing you to transform. She is the goddess of love and sex and commonly associated with magic. She represents the function of having people succumb under her power, of enchanting, bewitching, attracting, subjugating, magnetizing them. The goddess Kurukula is invoked for the controlling activities of subjugating, magnetizing, and attracting. She's extremely seductive. Her red color and subjugating flower attributes emphasize her more mundane activity of enchanting men and women, ministers and kings, through the bewitching power of sexual desire and love, which means that she is another aspect of Inanna Ishtar. For attracting or subjugating a man, the flower hook and arrow are visualized as piercing his heart. Really? Because that sounds very similar to Cupid, aka Tammuz, who likes to shoot people in the heart. There's a reason they do this. It isn't mythology, it's real. That's why they reference it over and over and over. You might say, don't they have any new ideas? It's not about that. It's about using our creative abilities to manifest what they want. And right now, they want war.